Manhattan was once traded for a handful of nutmeg, and it was a good deal. 7 spices, wars, monopolies, and one decision that changed the map of the world.
Silphium. There was a spice Rome loved more than gold. It no longer exists. Silphium grew in only one place on Earth, a narrow coastal strip around the Greek colony of Cyrene in North Africa. Nobody managed to grow it anywhere else. Every attempt failed. Why? Nobody knows to this day. The Romans used it everywhere, in food, in medicine, as an aphrodisiac. Pliny the Elder wrote that the juice of Silphium was literally worth its weight in silver. The coins of Cyrene did not feature portraits of rulers. They featured Silphium. But demand was endless, and the plant could not be cultivated. It was harvested faster than it could recover. Gradually, Silphium became rarer and more expensive, and at some point, only one stalk remained. It was cut and sent to Emperor Nero as a curiosity, as the last specimen of something that would never exist again. The first recorded extinction of a plant in human history. The cause? Human appetite.
Long pepper. Before black pepper conquered the world, there was another pepper, and it was the one that mattered. Long pepper looks strange, not round peppercorns, but small cylinders that resemble pine cones or a caterpillar. Sharper than black pepper, more complex in flavor. And for thousands of years, it was the standard pepper in ancient Rome and India. Apicius, a Roman food writer of the 1st century, included pepper in almost every recipe in his book. Arab traders sold long pepper for more than black, 15 denarii per pound against 4. It was considered the more valuable and more complex product. Then the Portuguese opened a direct sea route to India. Black pepper flooded into Europe in enormous quantities. It was easier to transport, cheaper, and there was more of it. Long pepper was simply pushed out of the market, not because it was inferior, but because logistics beat flavor. Today, it is nearly impossible to find in an ordinary store. Most people have never tasted it. Logistics beat flavor. It always does.
This spice was called grains of paradise.
Not because it was heavenly, but because it needed to sell for more. Grains of paradise, small reddish-brown seeds from West Africa, sharp with notes of ginger and cardamom. In the 13th century, they appeared on European markets, and Arab traders refused to say where they came from. Standard practice: hide the source, raise the price. The name was invented deliberately. Grains of paradise, a spice from Eden, delivered through heavenly rivers. Europeans paid as if it were pepper from paradise. Nobody knew it was simply West Africa. In the Middle Ages, this worked. There was no internet, no way to check, and the word paradise sold better than any advertisement. The Portuguese were the first Europeans to reach the west coast of Africa by sea and see where these seeds actually came from. The coastline where they grew in the wild, they named the Pepper Coast, and that name stayed on maps for centuries. Today, that coastline is called Liberia. The name of the country changed. The reason Europeans sailed there? Long forgotten. A marketing deception from the 13th century. It worked perfectly.
In 1640, the Portuguese king banned this spice, not because it was dangerous, but because it was getting in the way of selling another one, Cubeb pepper. Black berries with a long, thin tail. Looks like ordinary black pepper with a tail attached. Originally from Indonesia, sharp with notes of eucalyptus and camphor, nothing like black pepper in flavor, despite the resemblance. In the Middle Ages, Cubeb was everywhere. Added to food, wine, medicines. Arab physicians prescribed it for digestive problems. European apothecaries sold it as a remedy for respiratory conditions. It was expensive and sold well. That was exactly the problem. In 1640, the King of Portugal officially banned the sale of Cubeb. The Portuguese controlled the black pepper trade and made enormous amounts of money from it, and Cubeb was direct competition. Because of the Portuguese monopoly on spice supplies, the effect of the ban spread across all of Europe. Cubeb disappeared from European markets for nearly 3 centuries. Today, it's used in the production of certain gins. It gives a distinctive note. Most people drink gin with Cubeb in it and have no idea. It was banned not because it was bad, but because it was too good.
This spice smells so bad, it is called devil's dung, and it is found in almost every Indian kitchen. Asafoetida, yellowish-brown lumps of resin extracted from the roots of a giant plant in the carrot family. Looks like chunks of amber or sulfur. The raw resin smells of rotten eggs and sulfur so intensely that it is stored in airtight containers away from everything else. But something strange happens when it hits a hot pan. The sharp smell disappears completely. In its place comes a deep onion and garlic aroma. The same resin, a completely different result.
When heated, the sulfur compounds break down and turn into something else entirely. For anyone who sees it for the first time, it looks like a trick. The Romans began importing Asafoetida in large quantities precisely when Silphium started to disappear. It was the closest substitute in flavor. Roman cooks used it in recipes as a direct replacement for Silphium. In India and Iran, it has been used for thousands of years, especially in vegetarian cooking, where it replaces onion and garlic, which are forbidden in certain religious traditions. Most Europeans have never tasted it and never heard of it. Smells like hell, tastes like heaven.
In the 17th century, this spice grew in an area smaller than modern Manhattan. To control it meant to control world trade. Nutmeg, a brown, hard fruit about the size of a small apricot. It grew on only one archipelago in the world, the Banda Islands in Indonesia. Nowhere else. It was the only source on the entire planet. The Dutch East India Company decided that such a source should belong to them alone. In 1621, the Dutch, under the command of Governor-General Jan Pietersen Koon, destroyed almost the entire population of the Banda Islands, around 15,000 people. The islands were resettled with Dutch colonists. The monopoly was established. But one small island remained, Run. The British controlled it and grew nutmeg there. The Dutch could not tolerate this. In 1667, under the Treaty of Breda, Holland and Britain exchanged territories. The Dutch gave the British their possessions in North America, a small settlement called New Amsterdam. The British gave up the island of Run. New Amsterdam is today called New York. The island of Run still produces nutmeg. A good deal for one of the parties. For 300 years, Europe knew vanilla, and for 300 years, nobody could grow it. Vanilla, the seed pods of an orchid that grows in Mexico. The Aztecs used it long before the Spanish arrived on the continent. The Spanish brought it to Europe in the 16th century. Every attempt to grow the orchid outside Mexico failed. The plant flowered, but produced no pods. The reason was not understood for 300 years. It turned out that Mexico has a specific species of bee, Melipona, that pollinates exactly this orchid. Outside Mexico, these bees do not exist. Without pollination, no pods. Without pods, no vanilla. The Spanish monopoly held for 300 years simply because nobody knew about the bees. In 1841, on the French island of Réunion in the Indian Ocean, a 12-year-old boy named Edmond Albius figured it out. He was enslaved on a plantation. Watching the orchid flower, he realized that pollination could be done by hand, with a thin stick in a single movement. The method took seconds. It worked perfectly. His owner took the method and shared it with other plantation owners. Edmond received nothing. Vanilla flooded France. The monopoly collapsed. Edmond Albius died in 1880 in poverty. Today, almost all vanilla in the world is pollinated exactly this way, by hand with a thin stick, using the method of a 12-year-old boy that nobody remembers.
The man who broke the Dutch spice monopoly was named Pierre Poivre, in French, Peter Pepper. In 1769, this French botanist and colonial administrator organized a secret expedition to the Maluku Islands, the Spice Islands, which the Dutch guarded with weapons. Smuggling live seedlings out carried the death penalty. They patrolled the waters, controlled every plantation, and systematically destroyed any trees outside their own territory. Poivre coordinated the operation from the island of Mauritius, bribing locals and smuggling out live seedlings of cloves and nutmeg. The seedlings were brought to Mauritius. They survived. Within a few decades, the spices spread across French colonies around the world. The Dutch monopoly that had been built and defended for more than 150 years collapsed. The man whose name meant pepper risked his life for spices and won.